Hello, my name is Brilyn Fletcher, and my disease is cholera. Um, the disease got its name from the Greek word gol, meaning flow of bile, and it is informally called the Blue Death because it drains the fluids out of the body of the people it infects until they turn a shade of light blue, as depicted in the image on the left of the screen. So, what is cholera? According to the World Health Organization, cholera is an acute diarrheal infection caused by ingestion of food or water contaminated with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. It's gram-negative and curved. Basically, cholera is a bacterial infection of the digestive system that, in severe cases, causes the body to secrete enormous amounts of water in the form of diarrhea. This is why cholera's watery diarrhea is often referred to as rice water stool, as it contains flecks, which are mucus and epithelial cells. With so much excrement leaving the body loses much of its electrolyte storage and it becomes severely dehydrated, which is what makes the disease deadly. So the number of cholera cases reported by the World Health Organization has continued to be high over the past few years. During 2020, there were 323,369 cases and 857 deaths. Worldwide, there are approximately 1.3 to 4 million cases and 21,000 to 143,000 deaths each year. But in the United States, it is considered rare with an annual average of 6 cases. So it's very concerning to see such a high death rate with this disease because although it is very virulent, it has a mortality rate of 25 to 30%. It is easily treatable, and the treatment is successful. And the treatment will reduce the mortality rate to less than 1%. So, for people to still be dying from this disease is just from a lack of proper access to health care in other places in the world and clean water. What are the symptoms of cholera? So most of the people infected will only show mild symptoms, and as I said, they can be successfully treated with oil rehydration solution. The symptoms include profuse watery diarrhea, vomiting, insatiable thirst, abdominal pain, nausea, fatigue, irritability, leg cramps, and severe dehydration, which is what leads to kidney failure, shock, coma, and eventually in death in severe cases. So it takes between 12 hours and 5 days for a person to show symptoms after ingesting contaminated food or water. And in mild cases, the symptoms will subside on their own within 3 to 6 days of the onset. Transmission. So the disease is spread through contaminated food or water. A feces will contaminate a water supply, and then individuals will ingest this water and become infected. And so it is, bodies of water are reservoirs for this disease, and along with humans. And some sources said that it it's zoonotic, with zooplankton reserving the disease or carrying the disease, but it seems like it's not 100% sure, but it's suspected that they do. So yes, okay. The history. So evidence suggests cholera has been present in India since ancient eras. This isn't an ancient time, but skipping ahead, in 1543, a Portuguese historian visiting India gave one of the first detailed accounts of the disease, saying, "The very worst of poisons seemed there to take effect, as proved by the vomiting, with draught of water accompanying it, as if the stomach were parched up, and cramps fixed in the sinews of the joints." So, pretty gnarly disease. Despite its existence in India throughout history, the first cholera pandemic wasn't until 1817, emerging from contaminated rice in the plains of the Ganges Delta, and the outbreak began in Jessore, India. From India, it followed trade routes until it became a global pandemic. And following that outbreak, there have been 6 subsequent pandemics, which have killed people from across all continents. The current pandemic, which is still killing people, is the 7th one, and it started in South Asia in 1961, reached Africa in 1971, and the Americas in 1991. It's very interesting that there's evidence showing this disease to have been present in human history for so long, but an outbreak wouldn't occur until fairly recently. So it's just interesting. So as I was researching this disease, make sure I have. Okay. As I was researching this disease, I was suddenly recalled a book I read in like sophomore year of high school, called First They Killed My Father, which is a biography of a little girl from Cambodia, Long Un, and her tragic child during the Cambodian genocide, where she was forced to be trained as a child soldier while her siblings were sent to labor camps. If you don't know what the Cambodian genocide is, it's it involved the systematic killing of thousands, millions of Cambodians by the Khmer Rouge, and it was led by the communist leader Pol Pot. I was so surprised when I realized that I had only been introduced to a piece of literature describing the Cambodian genocide. I hadn't read anything about it until I was 16 or so. And yeah, I find that odd because it is very, very deadly, and fascinating as most tragic historical events are. So yeah, I would definitely recommend looking into it if you haven't already. But so there was a passage from the book that always stuck out with me, and it was a description of her sister, the little girl's sister, Kiev, of an illness she got while she was working at one of the teenage labor camps. And I'm gonna read it. So this is written by the sister, but she's telling the experience Kiev had with contracting this disease, and the disease was never specified, but I believe it was cholera, and I'll explain why once I finish reading it. So, August 1976. Kiev still lives in Kong Shalat, a teenage work camp with about 160 laborers. The teenagers are separated into 2 houses, one for the boys and one for the girls. At the camp, they work from dawn until dusk in the rice fields. The girls are given less food than the boys, but are expected to work just as hard. Both their food rations consist only of watery rice soup and salted fish. Kiev woke up one day to notice that her stomach was bloated and rumbling, making sounds as if something was swishing around inside. She ignored it, believing it was merely hunger pains. She took a deep breath, tears welling up in her eyes. Always there are hunger pains. Sometimes the hunger pains hurt so much that they spread to every part of the body. It has been a long time since she'd had enough to eat. She rubbed her hand on her stomach, telling it to settle down. I see Kiev breathing deeply and trying to fill the void in her heart. Her lungs expand and take in more air as she chases our images away. This loneliness. How is she to survive this loneliness? To live in a place where no one cares about her and everyone is out to get her. She has no protection there. She is utterly and completely alone. She misses Paul so much, misses his protection and the way he looks at her and worries about her. She misses Ma's arms and her stroking her hair. Kiev wraps a red scarf around her head and walks towards the rice fields. Every day she works in the rice fields, planting and harvesting rice. Every day it is back-breaking work. It is only 5 a.m., but today she could see that the sky is hazy and cloudless. The air is already hot and humid. In an hour, the haze dissipates to expose a white sky. Her black pajama pants and shirt absorb the sun rays, and sweat drips out of all her pores. With the sun beating down on the top of her head, the heat and humidity make it difficult for her to breathe. An hour passes and her stomach continues to growl, making loud, angry noises. She ignores it, hoping it will eventually settle itself. Talking and singing isn't allowed during work. Planting rice has now become an automatic physical action requiring no concentration. Thus she has a lot of time to spend with herself and her head. Too much time, even. Her mind grows lazy and wanders around too many topics. Her schoolwork, a cute boy she met, movies she saw, but always it comes back to our family. She misses us so much. Another hour passes and her stomach is now in great pain, causing her to double over. She wraps her arms around her stomach, runs to the bushes, pulls her pants to her ankles, and lets the poison run out of her. She pulls her pants back up and walks back to the fields, but soon has to rush back to the bush again. After several visits to the bushes, she finally walks over to the supervisor. "Please, I am very ill. It is my stomach. May I take the rest of the day off to visit the infirmary?" she pleads with the supervisor. The supervisor looks at her with disgust and contempt. "No, I do not believe you are sick. We all have hunger pains. You are just a lazy, worthless city girl. Go back to work." Kiev's heart shatters. Another hour passes, but her stomach refuses to settle down. In that hour, she spent 10 minutes in the rice field and the rest of the time in the bushes. She is so sick and weak that she has to drag her body to the supervisor. "Please, I am very sick. I cannot stand up anymore." As sick as she is, Kiev's face burns with embarrassment as she follows the supervisor's gaze to her leg. On her last trip, Kiev soiled her pants. "You smell terrible. All right, you have permission to go to the hospital." Finally, with permission slip in hand, Kiev staggers back to her camp and collapses. So, did Kiev contract cholera? The time Kiev fell ill was in 1976, and the seventh cholera pandemic would have been active in Cambodia at that time. Also, she worked near and was fed by a natural reservoir for cholera, the rice fields, and it can be assumed several other children released waste in the fields as she did, transmitting the disease through the camp. Kiev's symptoms and those of cholera are congruent: excessive diarrhea, nausea, fatigue, and abdominal pain. With all that being said, I highly suspect that Kiev did in fact die from cholera. So, as you can see, cholera has made it through several disasters. It's been around for a very long time, but is still killing and haunting many people across the world. And yeah, I can't think of anything else to say. So, thank you.